Hey guys, James here, and today I'm gonna touch on the World of Warcraft decline. Not only in PvP, but mostly in as a game. Uh, I think the game has been not really dying, but just slowly declining. I think every single expansion, all of the millions of players that come back want to have a go on World of Warcraft and hope that it's finally back on track. And I think Blizzard and the World of Warcraft team actually kind of disappoints all of those players, and Shadowlands has been a huge disappointment. I'm gonna touch on a few aspects of why I think the game has been declining since Rat. Yeah. So the first question is, why has World of Warcraft declined? And I think it's simple. I'm gonna give you a kind of historical context on the World of Warcraft, but the answer to this question it's pretty simple. It's just not an MMORPG anymore. It's just not. If you compare any, if you compare Shadowlands to Classic or to TBC or at some point even Wrath of the Lich King, you just don't recognize the game anymore. You don't recognize the pacing of gearing, the pacing of your character, the pacing of damage, everything. It's just so fast right now in Shadowlands. It feels like Blizzard is trying to cater to a player base that doesn't really want to play World of Warcraft anyways. And with that, they're actually losing the player base that they gathered throughout the years, and I think that's one of the main reasons that World of Warcraft it's slowly dying. Instead of making it a good MMORPG, they just focus on story, which, let's be honest, doesn't really matter. Like Classic and TBC don't really have a huge engaging story, and they were like great games, right? Obviously with their problems, but we are talking about 15-year-old games that are more MMORPG like than current World of Warcraft, and that's due to the story just driven type of content that Blizzard keeps doing, and obviously all the systems that they keep adding. So, but before we touch on many of the points I have here, I want to give you the historical context. So, World of Warcraft had two great shifts in terms of designers. And the first one was during Wrath of the Lich King. Many people might not remember, but Jeff Kaplan was actually, I think, the game director at the time throughout Classic and TBC and the start of the Wrath of the Lich King. And he left during Ulduar. I think it was like Ulduar was actually his last raid as a game director or whatever he was doing, and he left with a few designers to this other project that you might remember the name, which was Titan. It was set to be an MMORPG, futuristic MMORPG that would change the game for MMORPGs, and it turned out to be Overwatch. I think Overwatch actually uses a lot of the assets of that MMORPG they were making, and yeah, it just left during Ulduar. This was um, the first great shift in terms of in terms of design of the game. If you just compare, for example, the Wrath of the Lich King expansion to Cataclysm, or TBC and Wrath to Cataclysm, you will notice that there was this great shift in terms of class design, in terms of the design of the game overall, where classes, for example, just started to gain more and more and more and more stuff like stuns, kicks, cooldowns, all of that was added after Jeff Kaplan actually left and a few other designers. The second shift was, in my opinion, the worst. That led us to this complete decline of World of Warcraft, which was during WoD. During WoD, a lot of the designers started to leave Blizzard. A lot of designers left Blizzard, and it was when I think Ian was made kind of game director. I know it was during Legion, but or the end of WoD, but with him being game director, it actually came more of the devs from the Diablo 3 team actually started to come into WoW, and you can see the shift in terms of design, especially class design and game design, where they added mythic dungeons, they added resources for every single class. They became more story driven instead of gameplay driven, and it led to Shadowlands. I think you could. That was an email. Okay. I think you can pretty much start to track the biggest downfall of World of Warcraft through from WoD onwards. And I know a lot of people love Legion. I don't get why, but because I actually quitted pretty like 2 or 3 times during Legion. Like I just wanted the game to be good. The game was not good for me, but I do know that a lot of players see Legion as the best expansion or one of the best expansions, and I think Legion actually laid down the foundation to BFA and Shadowlands, which in my opinions are the two worst expansions, even worse than WoD, because even though WoD was kind of content, had a really big content drought, I think you still felt like when you were playing it, you still felt like it was World of Warcraft. Right now in Legion, BFA, and Shadowlands, it doesn't feel like it's World of Warcraft. It feels like you're playing like I don't know, League of Legends, and with more buttons. But yeah, so these were the two shifts in class design, in overall design of the game, and you can feel it if you play WoD and you play a WoD private server and you play like a Legion private server, if that's actually a thing, you will see a great shift. And if you play Wrath of the Lich King and Cataclysm private servers, you will also see that. But the difference was, while from Wrath of the Lich King to Kata, they did change a lot of things. They kept the feeling that it was World of Warcraft still, and in my opinion, they didn't do the same uh, through the WoD and Legion transitions. So, what were the problems, and why is the World of Warcraft declining? Which is the big answer, which is the big question. And in my opinion, is trying one of the big uh, problems is trying to please to everyone, and this started in Wrath of the Lich King. So to give you context, during TBC and pretty much Classic, players wouldn't be able to see the last raid. It was extremely hard to get into Naxxramas. I didn't play back then, but I've heard the stories of only 0.01% of the players actually saw Naxxramas or something like that. And during TBC, Sunwell was actually extremely hard, and you will see when TBC Classic comes, actually extremely hard to get into. Because every time a new player had to came to World of Warcraft, they would have to do the raids in their order. So you would have to do Karazhan, then you would have to do Gruul's, Magdaridans, um, and that was tier 4. Then you had to do Tempest Keep, Serpent Shrine, that was tier 5, and then Mount Hyjal, Black Temple, and only then you could probably go into Sunwell. Now you had a few catch-up mechanisms, but that was pretty much a progressive way of gearing. You just couldn't come in and just straight away go into Sunwell. You would get absolutely destroyed. So Blizzard in Wrath of the Lich King started a trend that never stopped, which was trying to please to everyone. So they added different difficulties to pretty much every part of the content of the game except Arena, and that's why I kept doing PvP and I kind of chilled on PvE, because when you try to please to everyone, you won't please to anyone. That's how I see um, the life, and that's how I see gaming. If you're trying to please to the most casual player and to the most hardcore player, it means the gaps start to actually get increased, and you have a loophole in your game, which makes the game start to feel like it doesn't really matter what you do. And if you think about it, it really doesn't. Especially in Shadowlands, for example. Like the fact that you're trying to please to everyone, it means that you need to have extremely easy content for the casual player, or not even the casual, but the bad player, and you need to have extremely hard content for the hardcore player. And I think this is a whole Blizzard dig themselves, and I think they didn't need to do this. And I think it's one of the main reasons why the game has been declining, because when you have extremely easy content, then the hardcore player doesn't really care about that content, doesn't, unless it's attached to like a reward that they actually need. They don't really do the content. This is stuff like LFR, normal dungeons, normal raiding, um, what more, yeah, it's kind of that type of content. And when you have extremely hard content, the casual player doesn't really need to go into it because he's already doing easy content. So the not even casual, but by the way, I don't mean casual as a bad player. I just mean casual as people who can't play even 1 hour or 2 hours per day. So that those type of players don't really want to do the mythic raiding. Why? Because they are doing LFR and they are doing normal and they are clearing it. They are getting gear, and yeah, they don't really have to do the mythic content to get gear. They don't really have anything to aspire for, and it's the same with arena. Without it's kind of the same with arena, even though they did change that in Shadowlands with the requirements for gear. What this creates in terms of game design is a huge increase in power. So if you're trying to please everyone, you need to have rewards for pretty much everyone. Even though it's a participation trophy, you do need to have that participation trophy for the casual. Else he doesn't get anything from that type of content, and he can't really go to the hard content because he's stuck doing that type of easy content. So what happens and what started to happen was the power creep increasing, where if you play Shadowlands, you will definitely know this, where we are in season 1 in PvP, in terms of PvP, and we are ready. When you're fully geared at gladiator rating, you have 227 item level, but you start with 150 when you get to 60. So that's what, 40 plus 27, it's 67 item levels difference. It's actually insane when you think about it. It's a huge power creep that you need to close out. What this creates in terms of PvP, and I'm gonna talk about PvP, but it's the same in PvE. It's new players that come in just get completely destroyed because the gap is just way too big. It's just an enormous gap, and that's why people are complaining about gearing in Shadowlands, because it's not the vendor. The problem is not the vendor. It's not the 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 way they are doing it. It's not even the grind. The problem, it's actually the power creep, where when since Blizzard is trying to please to everyone, you need to have rewards for everyone, and the rewards need to be within their kind of skill or time consumption, and then you just create this huge problem that has been in the game since at least WoD, not WoD, but at least Legion, I think, where you start an expansion with 160 item level, and by the end of the first season of PvP and the first season of raiding, you just end up with a 67 item level increase. Guys, we started Shadowlands with 20k HP, and now we have like 40k. That's a double in terms of damage, in terms of HP, in terms of everything. It's uh, we just doubled the power of our characters within a few months, and that is one of the main problems that causes people to leave, because it's not fun going into a raid or going into an arena and just be completely destroyed. And I think Van Rookie has a really good video that he goes into arena with Zilia, which was also a BlizzCon champion, and they just get completely destroyed because the gap is just way too big. It doesn't matter what you do when your abilities hit for nothing and the enemy abilities just delete you. So this is the first problem that I see with World of Warcraft, besides the part of the story, which is trying to please to everyone. I don't think Blizzard should try to please to everyone. I think Blizzard should have content for everyone, but it doesn't need to be tied into gearing, right? Or gearing doesn't need to be tied into that content. Look at TBC. Like, it's funny how TBC, which is a 15-year-old game, it's actually more casual friendly than Shadowlands, because you just log in, you get your PvP gear through 10 games only, you go into raiding, and obviously there will be a gap between a guy that is only raiding Karazhan and the guy that is raiding Sunwell, but the gap won't be as big as currently we have in Shadowlands. Why? Because each raid tier just increases your power just a little bit, because each raid only has one difficulty. So the power gap between a Karazhan raider and a Sunwell raider, for example, or even season 1 gear and season 4 gear, it's actually minor than or it's less than in Shadowlands season 1 alone. So that is a big issue with the game, that I truly believe that players actually leave the game because you can't raid, because you don't have the gear for it, and you can't really do arenas because you just get destroyed. So I think this is a big problem that started in Wrath of the Lich King with several difficulties, and is one of the main reasons why people leave, or I would guess so, because it's just not fun. It's just really not fun. And then trying to please to everyone and having gear attached to every single part of the content just makes you feel like you completed the game. You do an LFR or a normal raid, and it feels like you've completed the game, but you didn't, because that's actually just a part, a small part of your process. Like, you still have a really long way to go. You need to do heroic, you need to do mythic, but you won't, because why would you? Uh, just to get a little bit more or way better gear, yeah, sure, but next patch, your gear won't matter anyways. You just get new gear that is comparable to at least heroic on Castle Natria, right? So this is a really loophole and a really a big hole that Blizzard started to dig themselves in Wrath of the Lich King, and I think it was one of the biggest mistakes they did, which was just several difficulties for everything. In Wrath, though, they did it well, because it was only two difficulties really. It was heroic and normal, and then 25 men or 10. So it wasn't as big as of a problem, and the difference between the gearing wasn't actually that big. It was obviously for parses it was big, but in terms of details, damage, or it wasn't that big, right? But yeah, I think one of the main problems it's this one. The next one is the lack of hard content, and I know what you guys are gonna tell me, which is, oh, but we have Mythic, we'll try to do a Mythic plus 20 and try to raid Mythic, and I actually did it, and they are kind of hard, obviously, but but they are not necessary, and this kind of ties to the last point. You don't really need to do them, honestly, to feel that you accomplished something in the game with all of these difficulties before. Like, why would you do it plus 20? You don't even gain anything from doing a plus 20. And same with Mythic, like you just waste time of your life doing a Mythic raiding. That's how I felt, at least when I was Mythic raiding. I was so bored because it just too punish it just punishes you so hard. Even if you don't fuck up and someone fucks up, you just die in a mythic in a mythic raid. And I think it should be hard. It should be really hard, but it doesn't feel like fun. There's there's hard that is fun, and there's hard that is just annoying. And I feel like lately it has been like just mostly annoying. But yeah, I think there's lack of hard content outside of raids and Mythic Plus. The Mage Tower is a good example of Blizzard actually thinking, where it's really hard, or it was really hard at the start with the gear we had when it released, and it was a hard content that it was fun because you would get this special artifact appearance, so it's legit old Blizzard. Mage Tower, it's legit old Blizzard type of content, and I think they should do more of that, not less, and less of all of this Mythic Plus and Mythic raiding bullshit. But yeah, too many systems. Content is driven by rewards and not fun. This is another point that I wanted to talk, and I touched it a little bit. There's just too many systems, man. It's just insane. Like, just think about it. You have Torghast for the legendaries, you have the Maw for the sockets, and you have your class campaign for the Renown, and you have the Renown itself, obviously, and you have your Covenants with the Soul Binds, and on top of Soul Binds, you have Soul Conduits. Just too many systems. Like, it doesn't need to be this hard. I can only imagine a player that returns into World of Warcraft and didn't play since, I don't know, Kara or even MOP, and comes back now and is like, what the fuck is this shit? Like, the game is too system heavy. The game, it's so simple to make World of Warcraft, actually, if you think about it. You just do good class design, good raids, good dungeons, and have good PvP tuning, in the game, it pretty much just plays it out. And then you have like side content like Mage Tower, like yeah, like Mage Tower type of content where you can just get reps or reputation content, where you just get like a few profession things, and you get like appearances for transmog, and that's it. And you keep playing because you want to play the game, not because you have to. And this is another thing that systems make, in my opinion, is it kind of they kind of strangle you into playing, because if you don't play, you get behind. And even though there's a catch-up system, you always feel like you're behind if you don't play for a day and two. So this actually kills the casual experience or enjoyment of the game, where if you just go on a vacation for, I don't know, 3 weeks or 2 weeks, you come back and you're already behind. And while you should be behind if you stop playing, the way they put you is just annoying actually, because it prevents you from playing the character to your max potential. In terms of gear, it's normal to be behind if you don't play for 3 weeks, and that's what happened back in the day. And every time you stopped playing, you would get behind in terms of gear. That's fine, but it would never get behind in terms of how your character felt, or how your character played. You just felt behind because you didn't have as much gear, and that was fine because then you can actually catch up. But on how your character actually feels, try to play, try to change covenants, and try to play without, for example, a shadow priest without in PvP without familiar predicaments, which is the interrupt reduction, and you're just behind. It just doesn't play how it should. And all of these systems do that. That's why I didn't like Legion, because Artifact did that. Azerite and Danek and Corruption did that. And now Covenants, Soulbinds, Soul Conduits do that. You just changes the way you play your character, and it's not in a good way. I think it's one of the biggest, if not the biggest reason why people just leave, because it's just so annoying. It is annoying. And when you do get, for example, full soulbind unlock through renown, you don't really feel like anything. You just feel like you're relieved, because now you don't have to do all of this shit. But every patch will bring more of that. So every patch you are strangled into playing again, and people just get to a point where they just don't care about those type of systems, so they leave, because if they can't play every single day for 1 or 2 hours, they get behind, or every week at least they get behind. And then if they are behind, especially in PvP, it's the worst feeling ever. Or even in a raid, when you're doing damage and everyone is just doing more more and more and more damage, and you're doing the same damage. Too many systems. I think they need to chill on the systems. uh, I would even say remove these type of systems. It's just too many systems, and on top of the systems, you have too many ways to the repeatable content. It's actually horrific. Doing Mythic Plus raids are repeatable content right now, because you have like 4 difficulties. Mythic Plus it just gets boring at some point. It really does, for me at least. I just get bored. I miss when I came into a dungeon and the dungeon was just hard. I didn't need to do the dungeon, then I would get a key to do another dungeon, or even the same dungeon in a slightly harder difficulty. Like, no, just make mythic dungeons, just remove Mythic Plus, make mythic dungeons really fucking hard. And you can just, if you want to keep Mythic Plus, just get cosmetics. That's actually what was challenge mode. But yeah, I think there's too many systems, and the problem with it, it's if the systems were kind of optional, it would be fine, but they are not. They are never optional. They are driven by rewards, and they are driven by power. So you have to do them in order to get those. And that's one of the biggest problems the game has as well. Another one is just too much focus on competitive stuff. Now, as a PvPer, I think they just focus too much. Well, not on PvP, but on Mythic Plus and all of that. I think they just focus too much on competitive stuff, so it actually breaks the game. And one good example of that is Mythic Plus, where, for example, Demo Warlocks, and they can't really live together, Mythic Plus and Arena. That's why when Mythic Plus it's kind of fun, Arena it's just bad, and when Arena it's kind of fun. Mythic Plus, it's just whatever. It's because the way you design classes for Mythic Plus actually affects Arena pretty much. So let's take a look at Demo Warlocks, and at the start of the expansion, every Demo Warlock was asking, that is a PvEer, every Demo Warlock was asking for a kick, and in a vacuum this seems fine, but they added the kick, and this actually affected kind of PvP. Why? Because now Demo Warlock has two kicks, has stuns, and has fear, and is just overall super aids to face. Just really, it just aids to face a Demo Warlock. Why? Because they needed to give this tool for Mythic Plus, and that affected PvP. And they can't really change too much of that type of stuff. Else you play one way in PvE and you play another way in PvP. So with too much focus on Mythic Plus or Arena, the game actually starts to feel less fun and the classes start to feel less unique. So that's why every class has a AoE stun, a kick, a small CC, a casted CC. Like every single class has at least three of the four, and that makes the game feel like you're playing the same class over and over, but just with different skin and different animations. And this comes into my next point, and the point that I actually think it's the biggest problem or for World of Warcraft, which is class design downfall. And this is why I don't like Legion. If you were wondering why I don't like Legion, it's because it started the downfall of World of Warcraft class design. I would say MoP did as well, but because it was in MoP that the arms race was completely insane and everyone has just everything. But MoP class design still felt kind of like World of Warcraft, but in Legion, like I said before, just felt like you're playing a game of League of Legends, where half of the games are in Arena especially are just insanely like just animations flying through everyone, and every class is kind of the same if you think about it. We can compare a Demon Hunter to a Boomkin, for example, where you do stuff to gain a bar and then you unload that bar on someone when you have the bar full and you line up cooldowns. And I think the class design downfall it's one of the bigger problems World of Warcraft has. They 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 went away from mana. For example, even hunters, and I'm on my hunter on classic, and they went away from mana to all of these resources that don't really mean anything, and that affected PvE and PvP, but mostly PvP, where, for example, off-healing it's completely insane, and it would be fine if they went to them, but it doesn't matter because they don't use abilities that require mana, for example, Enhancement Shaman or Paladin. They just use kind of resources. And their mana, and even when they do use like Flash of Light or Healing Surge, their mana doesn't really matter. It regenerates super fast, and they don't use mana in terms of offensive spells. So this is one of the many reasons why PvP doesn't feel fun, because you can just off heal and then do damage normally. And I think with the class design downfall, it started the PvP downfall. It started some people started to leave more and more because, let's be real, even though PvP is a minigame within World of Warcraft, it's actually what keeps people playing the game when there's a content drought. If anything, PvP actually saved WoD from being completely from losing all of the subscribers, because PvP it wasn't good, but it wasn't horrific like it is in Shadowlands. And if they actually tuned PvP back in the day in WoDs, I would say maybe WoD wouldn't be seen as the worst expansion ever. Yeah. But yeah, guys, I think World of Warcraft as a whole is just kind of feels like a middle-aged man going through an identity crisis and just doing random stuff. The team, I think it's very weak. I really believe the Blizzard team devs are extremely weak at the moment. Um, they don't need to, and this is what I don't agree with many streamers or anything. They don't really need to reinvent the wheel. They just need to stick to what it worked 14 years ago and improve. It's actually insane that, for example, um, TBC just it's a better overall game than Shadowlands. The game has been out for 15 years. The game should be better. We have what? We have TBC, Wrath of the Lich King, Kata, MOP, WOD, Legion, BFA. We are on the 8th expansion and the game it's getting worse. Doesn't make any sense. I think the biggest problem and why World of Warcraft has been declining is Blizzard trying to appease all of these new gamers and not actually getting them into playing World of Warcraft and actually losing the players that were playing World of Warcraft because they are trying to capture all of this other player pool that just doesn't want. And when they do capture, and it's actually fun, when they do capture all of these players, you have stuff like solo queue being thrown around. And yesterday I was watching Stay Safe, and it just said, it's actually unbelievable. It just said, "Oh, throw solo queue into TBC Classic. It would be so fun." No, it wouldn't. Like players are just entitled right now, and Blizzard is trying to appease to them, and pretty much that's the main reason why World of Warcraft has been declining, trying to please everyone. Just fucking design your game, go back in time. I've said this many times. Just go back in time, see what worked during the TBC, see what and it didn't obviously. What worked and what didn't work. Do the same in Rat and just build from there. Just it's not hard. Just build from there. See what worked, see what didn't, and then just remake World of Warcraft. Like one of the it's actually funny. I'm leveling this hunter and I can't wait until TBC comes to play survival because survival is pretty fun in TBC arena. And I would never touch a survival hunter in my life in Shadowlands. Never. They just try to make these weird changes in class design and the way the game works, and it doesn't work. It's the same for me in terms of Mythic Plus. It was funny during Legion. It was neither during BFA to do arenas. After that, I don't touch them. I, I don't like doing the same dungeon over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. I really don't. And having to spam, I rather the TBC treatment where I go there, but I don't really go for items of the dungeon. I go from a currency, and the currency gives me something else. But yeah, guys, I think World of Warcraft is slowly. It's not dying. I don't think it will die. If it didn't die during WoD, I don't think it will die. But but I think it's declining extremely rapidly since Ian took the mantle of game director. I think there's something extremely wrong within Blizzard themselves, especially the World of Warcraft team, and I think it's affecting the game in a negative way. I think the team itself it's extremely weak, and this is not a shot at the devs. They are not like they are not the ones to blame, kind of. the the mid-tier devs and the low-tier devs. They are not the ones to blame. Uh, they are just not good enough to design World of Warcraft, or maybe the ideas that people actually tell them to do, what they tell them to do, are just not good, and they just design whatever the fuck other people tell them to do. I don't know how it works actually, but I just think that I'm just glad that TBC is coming out. I hope they don't fuck that up. Um, I really do. I hope the level 58 boosting it's the only thing they add, kind of, and that they don't change too much. I think with leatherworking drums and 58 boost, I think that's enough of changes. Let the rest be the same, kind of, and yeah, let's hope TBC actually changes the mentality of the live team and actually shows. I have this idea that TBC will actually have more people playing than Shadowlands because of PvP. But yeah, guys, that is it for me. And the answer for why has World of Warcraft declined? It's just not World of Warcraft anymore. It's just Warcraft in a RPG game. Yeah. See you guys. If you like the video, press the like button, subscribe if you want to watch more stuff, and if you have ideas of content, just throw it out there, and I will try to do some of those. Peace.